People you're talking about, they spent money on white women. They set up bars and they went playing pool and golf for $1,000 a hole, and they were known to make millions and millions when there wasn't no high taxes, and they were not hindered by white America. They were allowed to see the white America is completely and close all the doors on me. I'm not allowed to work in America, out of America. I was stopped right in my prime just when I started making money. So you can't compare me with nobody like Joe Lewis or nobody.
And if you are black, if you are brown, if you are indigenous, and if you are poor, this system is rigged and it is right to the core, and we gonna unbreak it. That's it. And that's all.
That other kind of socialism that revolutionizes the workplace, brings democracy to the workplace for the first time.
So that's one way. And then the other thing is, in my more optimistic days, he's such a perfect endpoint of everything that is toxic and dysfunctional about the United States, about capitalism, about the 80s, that maybe this is the final sort of disgusting burst before we evolve or change it to something better.
Talk about some things about why we need a new party. So I thought that'd be a good way to kind of do this. Why do we need a new party? We need a new party because both parties suck, John.
What are they talking about? Fortified. Are you fortified for the long run? Do you have your cemetery clothes on? Are you coffin ready to live and die for something bigger than you, like a fundamental transformation of a capitalist civilization?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, and it is December 9th, 2020, and we've got a lot to get to tonight, more stories than I'm going to be able to cover, news breaking even, shortly before we started our broadcast tonight, so going to try to get to as much as we can in, about, we'll see how long, but us, strap in, buckle in, it's gonna be a bumpy ride tonight. We got some ups and some downs in our stories tonight. Some really great news to talk about. Some really terrible news that we got to cover because it's important and it's crucial, and we have to do the work. Even though they're really tough stories, honestly, they tear at me to cover some of these stories, and so we're just gonna do our best to make sure that we bring you the news, no matter how difficult it may be to talk through these things. So, all right, let's get to it. Right off the top, please, if you're just tuning in, gotta ask for you to please hit that like button right down below. Smash that like button, as all the cool kids say. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. We're actually I should keep an eye on this tonight, and maybe super producer Tammy will keep an eye on it for us. But we're at 1,199 subscribers right now, so we're just one subscriber away from crossing the 1,200 mark. So if you're watching this right now and you're not already subscribed, be that 1,200th person. Do it right now. Hit the subscribe button right below. And you can always press that bell to either receive notifications or don't receive notifications. If you receive the notifications, you get alerted whenever we launch a new video or go live. And I hope, only do that if, one, you're not annoyed by the notifications, and two, you're actually willing to come and check us out and watch when you get those notifications, because it helps with their stupid algorithm. All right. So we got to play the game and, let the, sacrifice at the altar of the algorithm, essentially, So please help out, support the show in that way. Of course, if you can afford to do so, we would deeply, deeply appreciate you supporting the show financially. Again, only if you can afford to do so. Support us on Ko-fi or Patreon. Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/radical democracy. Links in the description box below. You can also find links to our Patreon as well. That's at patreon.com/radical democracy. And again, links are in the description box below. So if you're like me and you're too lazy to type that into your browser, just please open up the description box, click on one of those links, and support the show for as low as $1. You can support us for as low as $1, and we deeply appreciate that. And we need the support. We desperately, we critically, need this. It's vital for us. It's the only way that we continue to grow the show and bring you this content. So we need your support. We need grassroots support. We are independent, Black, left-wing media. We're not going to have corporate advertisers and sponsors knocking down our door. You, the people, are our benefactors, and we can only survive with your support. So please, if you can afford to do so, and don't feel bad if you can't, support the show. And we are building a democratic workplace here. So if you support democratic workplaces and, defeating capitalism through building workplace democracy, please, again, support the show as low as $1 a month. We deeply appreciate it. All right, let's get to it. All right, let's get right to it. So, like I said, we got a lot of stories to cover tonight. And we're going to try to get through as many of these as we can. Corey Saylor says, if I unsubscribe and resubscribe, will that count? I appreciate the enthusiasm, Corey, but unfortunately that will not count. That will simply, it'll take you off of the, our subscriber account and then add you back on. So no, it won't count. But we deeply appreciate the enthusiasm. We love we love our community for reasons like that. Folks that do support the show, they support the heck out of the show. And that's why I just can't thank our Ko-fi and our Patreon community enough for all of your support. And everyone else that just comes and joins these live streams and hangs out and chats and leaves comments. We need, that's the engagement that, helps keep the show thriving. So appreciate you all for being here. And again, just going to remind you, if you're just joining us, hit the like button down below. That's the first thing that you can do to support the show. All right, we got a lot to get to, like I said, so let's get right to it. Our first story up tonight, I just want to start out with some good news. If you watched our breaking news broadcast earlier, then you're already aware. But some exciting news to bring you. Nina Turner is officially running for Congress. So Nina Turner is we're fans of the show here. We're fans of Nina Turner here on the show for sure. Definitely support what she's done already up to this point, fighting for everyday people. And she is, just fighting on all fronts and really unafraid, unabashed. And she, brings a people's platform to the mainstream, and never backs down from, a fight for the marginalized, poor, working class people of this country and all around the world. Really, she is fighting that fight for everyone. Name the policy, a left policy. She supports it. Has given it full throated support. Medicare for all, Green New Deal, federal jobs guarantee, some form of a universal basic income to at the very least cover people through this pandemic. A $15 minimum wage tied to inflation and cost of living at the very least, housing as a human right, and actually developing the proper, public housing programs. And hopefully democratizing our housing eventually. She's not a outward supporter of that right now, but I guarantee you propose that to her and she'd support it. She supports democracy in the workplace and building unions. She is a friend of labor. You just can't name a left policy and she's right there. Ending cash bail, she speaks constantly on that. Ending qualified immunity. What Joe Biden has recently backed down on after pretending to placate some black folks ahead of the election with his intention to end qualified immunity, which essentially gives cops, and we're going to see a story tonight that really highlights that, but essentially allows cops free reign to do whatever the hell they want and never have to pay any price for it. So Nina Turner has officially announced, and she hasn't officially announced, I'll say, actually, let me correct myself. She hasn't officially announced, but she has filed some official paperwork with the FEC that, indicates her run for Congress. She would be running in Ohio's 11th district. This would be to replace Marcia Fudge, who is been nominated by the Joe Biden administration. So she's going to be, likely to fill a seat in the Biden administration. That's an technically, uncontroversial in the Senate, pick. So she'll pass through even a Republican controlled Senate with no problems because she is a neoliberal who supports, she's your typical run of the mill, just like neoliberal candidate. We know all the true progressives in Congress, and she ain't one of them. We'll dig deeper into Marcia Fudge in the future on the show. All right. But so Nina Turner let's take a look at what, was shared, is being shared around since Nina Turner has now filed. We can take a look at that, that official filing there with the FEC. And as you can see here, this is just a statement of organization for Nina Turner for U.S. In Ohio's 11th district. She would be running as a Democrat. She will be running as a Democrat, and as you can see, is to replace the incumbent Marcia Fudge. And you can see the committee information. This is Nina Turner for U.S. I imagine that's U.S. Congress, or maybe they're just, Nina Turner for us, maybe, or Nina Turner for, maybe it's Nina Turner for us, is the name of the committee. So I think that's what it actually is. So Nina Turner for us. It's sort of like the Bernie Sanders, not me, us slogan, essentially. So Nina Turner for us, I believe. And this is filed in Cleveland, and as you see one of the names on here, it's not just TJH at ninaturner.com, but also you can see Amy Vilela on here is named as the treasurer. I actually need to let me show you that. So you can see Amy Vilela is filed as the custodian of records and the treasurer. That means she's in control of this committee here, and this would be for fundraising purposes, essentially. They're allowed to raise funds for candidates. So Amy Vilela, for those that aren't familiar, Amy Vilela ran for Congress in Nevada in 2018. She was an amazing, just a tremendous candidate. Also, would have been an instant member of the squad. She was actually in the film, Knocking Down the House with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Paula Jean Swearingen, and Cori Bush. Of course, two of those folks are now members of Congress already. And so Amy Vilela just would have been an amazing candidate. She, again, backing all the same left policies that we support. And so it's great to see her these two teaming up together, and her getting some help from someone with some experience, in particular running for, Congress as a woman running for Congress, as a progressive woman running for Congress. So great to see that them teaming up together. And I just wanted to share just for those that might not be familiar with Nina Turner, maybe I got a clip of Nina Turner's, one of the clips, many clips. I mean, there's a million. It's so hard to choose from, to pick a clip that you enjoy of Nina Turner's. Just pick anyone, really, and you'll find something that you love her. Whenever she speaks, it's very moving. I had the honor of actually seeing her speak live at Bernie's the Burn app launch event for the 2020 campaign. So I got to see Bernie Sanders, Nina Turner, and Faz Shakir all speak live, and it was quite an honor to do so. Hope to have Nina Turner on the show someday. You can support her right now on her podcast, Hello Somebody. Definitely check it out. Support her if you can. And let's just take a look at this clip of Nina Turner here. And this is her making an appearance on MSNBC. And I just want to show this clip because it's such a great example of how she's able to, I mentioned this earlier during the breaking news stream. Nina Turner has an amazing ability to thread the needle between the, activist left and the sort of, the establishment, mainstream left. And she's able to push a left ideology, but she does it in a way, she's such an astute politician. She's able to do that without being rejected by the mainstream media. So she's still able to make appearances on MSNBC, on CNN, and deliver our message in such a clear, concise, effective way. I mean, she's somebody I personally just look up to, and I wish that I could speak like her, and I aspire to, someday be able to speak and push our program forward even 1% as effectively as Nina Turner. If I accomplish that, then I'll consider myself accomplished. So she's somebody that I really look up to, and I admire as just a left activist, and somebody that is trying to also help be some sort of conduit for the left message and in building a united left. So I think Nina Turner is doing all of what I aspire to do a fraction of someday. So let's take a look at this clip of her on MSNBC, how she handles these corporate establishment media entities, how she doesn't back down off of policy program, and how she is able to deflect the sort of typical right-wing centrist neoliberal attacks, and stick to the messaging and actually push her ideas forward. So let's take a look here at Nina Turner responding to the idea of this was back in the primaries before the New Hampshire primary. So we were still riding high here on the left. Things were looking really good. This was before the Bloody Monday, where Obama worked his magic behind the scenes and destroyed Bernie Sanders and destroyed the left for 2020 at least. Dealt the sort of fatal blow to the left movement in electoral politics for 2020, in presidential electoral politics for 2020. That was the Bernie Sanders campaign. All right, so let's take a look at this. She was on with Ali Velshi and Stephanie Ruhle on MSNBC.
The majority of Democrats who helped flip the House into...
Sorry, gotta slow it down for us here. I watch things a little sped up. Sorry.
The majority of Democrats who helped flip the House in 2018 were moderates. James Carville made the argument over the weekend that Senator Sanders isn't a Democrat, he's an ideologue, and we've got to get practical. If he is the candidate, he is not going to be able to help win over the Senate. And unless you have the Senate, if you've just got the White House, you ain't going to get nothing done.
Stephanie, does practical mean that the 89 or so million people who are uninsured or underinsured in this country continue to suffer? Does being practical mean that we don't take steps in this country to deal with climate chaos and bring world leaders to bear? Does being practical mean that we continue to prop up a legal system that is unjust in every stretch of the imagination, that bears its weight down on Black men and Black women, and then by extension, if you are Hispanic or indigenous or poor? Does being practical mean that we don't say to the American people that you deserve better than what you are getting? That's not the kind of practicality we want. Does practical mean that you hold fundraisers and wine caves with Swarovski crystals with billionaires who want to control this system? Does practical mean we continue to go with the status quo while 500,000 people sleep on the streets at night? That's not practicality. So with all due respect to Mr. Carville, what the American people in this country need, they need somebody that is unabashed and that has the courage and the conviction to stand up for them and to call out the rigging of this system. And that candidate is Senator Bernie Sanders.
But steps and a revolution are two different things. In order to get to a revolution, you've got to take steps. And what James Carville is saying is you've got to get to a practical place to make those changes.
Stephanie, the elites in 1930 said the same thing about FDR. And he said, I welcome your hatred. These are the same people that if the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was still alive, when he stood up before he was gunned down and he said to this country, he said the evils of this country, militarism, materialism, poverty, and racism. Those are those same people. So now if President FDR had listened to those people, or if the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King had listened to those people, we would not progress as a nation. So every generation, we got the naysayers, baby. But what the folks of this country need, they need somebody that's going to stand up for them. Senator Sanders is known as the Amendment King. He knows how to get things done. But what people need is to be able to call upon somebody that's not going to capitulate.
Senator Sanders supporters, what is their number one goal? Is it to start this revolution, or is it to defeat Donald Trump? And I ask because there's often a lot of talk around, will those supporters get behind another candidate if it's not Senator Sanders?
Stephanie, why can't we have both? You know, that same argument was made in 2016.
And a lot of those people didn't vote for
However, though,
Clinton.
Stephanie, more of Senator Sanders' supporters supported Secretary Hillary Clinton than her supporters supported then Senator Barack Obama. So let's set the record straight. People do want to defeat President Donald Trump, but they also want to know that they're going to have a fighter in the White House that's going to take it all the way, that's going to go ham on this system that has oppressed them. And so I reject, and so do the American people, the whole notion that you cannot say to a system that it must change and also push a dream and a vision that is bigger than what we have right now. Who wants somebody that's saying to the workaday people of this nation, I'm going to run for office, but you only going to get more of the same? That doesn't work. We're going to win this stuff.
All right. Well, you're certainly in it to win it. Great to see you.
You too, Steph.
That's the just incredible Senator Nina Turner, soon to be Congressperson, you know, state senator, of course. But we always make sure we put some respect on it. And, you know, she soon to be, hopefully, Congressperson, you know, Congresswoman Nina Turner. And what this means to the left, I think that this is just it's a little break in the clouds for the left. Really, it's been some dark times. If you're a solidly left person, then the election of Joe Biden wasn't a cause for any serious celebration. Of course, the defeat of Donald Trump, sure, that's some cause for celebration. The election of Joe Biden, on the other hand, not a cause for celebration. And you know, we talked about on the show, you know, just I won't dig up the, you know, I won't scratch the scabs off of those wounds right now, but it wasn't, you've seen how Joe Biden has been staffing his administration. There's not been anything to celebrate really about the Joe Biden administration, but this is one thing to celebrate. I'm glad if they take Marsha Fudge into the administration, because, Marsha Fudge would be, she's been nominated. She'd take a spot in the Biden administration that would open up the seat, and we could have a Congresswoman, Nina Turner by in 2021. They'd have to hold a special election, and we could have Nina Turner we wouldn't have to wait till 2022 for this. We could have Nina Turner in Congress in the next few months, and just imagine what that would be like. Imagine what it would be like to have her, alongside the squad. She would fight harder. Honestly, I think that she would stand out above the squad. There would be no mama bear Pelosiing or nothing like that. She's going to cut right to the heart of it. And she just doesn't play games, and she doesn't capitulate. Like she said in that clip that we just watched, she's not going to capitulate. She doesn't mince words with these people. She just tells it how it is. And she's a fighter all the way to the end. So she would be she would be fighting even harder than the squad is fighting right now. And she would just be an incredible asset to the left because I believe in an inside outside strategy, inside outside of the Democratic Party. I think inside outside of electoral politics. I don't think that we should be fighting inside of electoral politics alone. And I believe that we have to make, our fights on many fronts, but that is certainly one that I think that we can and should be fighting for, because, policies being set there that impacts millions of people in Congress. And that's where the real power to legislate exists. I mean, it's the legislative branch, right, of the government. So Corey Saylor says she was already a congresswoman before, wasn't she? No, she was a state senator. So she was a state senator. She ran for Senate before, or she ran for governor, I believe, of Ohio. Correct me if I'm wrong. She either ran for Senate or governor. But she's a Secretary of State. So she ran for Secretary of State in 2014, but didn't win the seat. So, but she was a state senator, and left only to run for that state office. And so she understands what it's like to run for a state office. This is a district-wide race, which is different than a statewide race, and also different than a state Senate race as well. So this is a new type of race for her, but she's got the backing of Amy Vilela, and she's got the backing of the left, really. And so I think that, I'll certainly be donating, volunteering some time to make some phone calls, send some text messages for her. Definitely plan to support. And I hope that everyone watching this intends to support as well, because I think this is something that we can and should get behind, because she would be a game changer in Congress. I feel the way that I feel about, I know this is going to probably rub some people the wrong way that are watching, that watch this, but even I thought Cenk Uygur would have been great in Congress, as much as I don't, we don't align 100% on policy wise. I'm to the left of Cenk. I'm a socialist. He is not. He is a capitalist. And we differ there. I believe in democratizing the workplace. He does not. And so we certainly have disagreements on policy, but I think that he is the sort of fire breathing, person that would have really changed the game in Congress. And I think Cori Bush has a potential for that, but I think that she's going to take time to build confidence, because she's, had to go through this whole process, being an underdog, and now she's just one person. But when she sees, Sister Nina Turner showing up, and the two of them, my goodness, Nina Turner, Cori Bush, I seldom do you see me getting excited for electoral politics, especially nowadays. I mean, since Bernie left the race way back when and conceded, I haven't really had any reason to get excited about electoral politics, but this is certainly one of them. So really happy for Nina Turner. excited to see her run, plan to support in every way, shape, and form we can. Would, really love to have her on the show, sometime in the future. In fact, we just started, I just got done earlier in the day doing a great interview. I guess you could sort of call it our first interview, although we've had the folks from the Vanguard on the show. But this is sort of our first interview on the show, a different format that we're doing there. And so I've already recorded the interview, just going to be doing some editing and then publishing that. We'll premiere it sometime in the next few days. It was an amazing interview. And just great insight from our guest, PhD, Professor Christian Chun, and it's on the topic of yellow peril and model minority myths. So definitely keep an eye out for that, and we'll post in our Discord server, give you a heads up, and post on Patreon. We may do early access for our Coffee and Patreon members potentially, because they support the show, and they're literally, without their support, we can't keep this thing running. So we want to make sure that we're giving back to those folks, since they give so much to us. But honestly, we would like to probably present that democratically in the Discord server and let folks decide there what they want to do. Would they rather us do early access or release it all at once and sort of live premiere it all together? We'll see. We'll do whatever the people democratically decide. We will go with the will of the people. All right. So please, if you haven't done so already, hit the like button, subscribe, share this out. Please share this on social media. That's the really big ask that we're asking right now to help grow the channel. Support independent left Black media. And that's a big way to help the show right now, because we're small and we need to grow. If you hit that like button down below, the next thing you should do, if you haven't done so already, is subscribe to the channel. All right. Especially we're right on the brink of our 1,200th subscriber. We'll try to keep an eye on that to see if we get any subscribers during the stream. I will try to keep an eye on that. So let's get to our next story here, because I really want to power through. Oh, it looks like I believe we've hit 1,200 subscribers. So thank you to whoever was our 1,200 subscriber. Feel free to leave a comment in the chat, and we'll give you a shout out. If you would like for us to fawn over your awesomeness, then please just leave a comment in the chat, and I'll give you a shout out here. Thank you so much for doing that. Really appreciate that. Really, really appreciate that. 1,200 subscribers. Yay. And honestly, I mean, it's hard to explain. I won't get into it. We got too many stories to get to today for me to get into it. All right. Let's keep powering along. Like I said, keep powering along. Oh, let's take some. Yep. Shout out to Ian for upping their Patreon membership to $10 a month. Thank you so much, comrade. Ian also shot me a message and let me know that they're also supporting the Tim Black Show and Nina Turner's Hello Somebody, as well as Democracy at Work. So thank you so much for all of that. What up, America? That's really awesome. Deeply appreciate that support. Deeply appreciate the support for independent Black left media. That's amazing. And we need more comrades like that. I don't want any burden or anything on anyone who can't afford to do so. Totally understand if you have to, downgrade sometimes and drop down to $1 a month or $0 a month sometimes, and then come back. We totally understand. Whatever you can afford is all we ever ask for. We don't want people to stretch themselves too thin, for sure, especially in these trying times. So we just appreciate every dollar support that we can get, and we really do. We need to get more supporters in order to do this show full time. I mean, I'm on the brink of having to take a job in programming, guys. I'm gonna have to make some extra money. So help me to do this full time. Support the show if you can afford to do so. Coffee.com/radical democracy. Links in the description box below. You can also support us on Patreon if you're already on there at patreon.com/radical democracy. Thank you so much to all of our community that supports in all of those places. You all are amazing. We have the best comrades. Love our community. Deeply appreciate you all. And I can't say it enough. All right. let's get to our, do we have any comments that we need to get to, or we'll just keep powering along to our next story here? All right. All right. So we started out with something really great. Like I said, this is going to be a bumpy ride. So please brace yourselves, you know, content warning, where the next thing up is a pretty disturbing story. We're going to look at, we're going to see some disturbing video. It's on Democracy Now. They're going to, you know, they'll do a warning beforehand. But just know we're going to see some graphic video, audio, I believe, and just want to warn everyone. So I hate to do these things, and I hate to see people, you know, Black bodies being brutalized, but you know, we have to cover these stories because we have to draw attention to them, because the mainstream media doesn't cover them the way that they need to be covered. And I don't want these people's stories to go untold, or for their pain to go unnoticed, because we need to see these shocking things. We have to endure it because some people are having to live it. So the least that we can do is to put ourselves through it. You know, if you have the mental health capacity to do so. I don't want to, again, we're not trying to burden people that are struggling right now with their own mental health. You know, work on that. You got to be able to bring your whole self to it to really, you know, to fight in these fights. So not trying to put any extra strain on anyone, but if you can handle it, you got to put that burden on your shoulders and bear it, because as painful as it is to watch these things, I mean, Black people, if you're, you know, to my white allies, white comrades out there, when we see these videos pop up on our timelines, on our news feeds, you know, for most of us, we can't help but to watch it, because it's, you know, we're seeing ourselves in that. We're seeing our sons and daughters, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, as we're going to see. It's a Black mother that that this story is about tonight. You know, and a Black mom was dragged out of her car, sworn by police, dragged out of her car and beaten in front of her toddler for the crime of driving down a street and by accident into, you know, in the midst of a protest. She was just trying to get home. All right, she was just trying to get home with her toddler in the car. She wasn't participating in the protest. She didn't even know what these protests were about. But let's take a look at the story, and we'll talk about it more. We're going to watch a clip from Democracy Now. Amy Goodman. This Black mother, her name is Rakia Young, and again, you know, just warning. You know, some of this video is just, it's hard to watch. It's disturbing video, you know, of police brutality against a Black woman here, and but I do think that it is critical for us to see these images so that we understand what's going on, and we fight back against that. All right, so let's take a look at this video from Democracy Now, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss on the other end.
Well, we begin with a horrific story, a warning to our listeners and viewers. The next segment contains graphic images and descriptions of police violence. As we go to Philadelphia, where a Black mother who was attacked with her family in October by a horde of police officers is speaking out about the harrowing experience. Rakia Young was driving an SUV with her 2-year-old son and teenage nephew on October 27th. As the city was engulfed in protest over the police killing of Walter Wallace Jr., a Black man having a mental health crisis earlier that day. But Rakia Young didn't yet know about that killing. She was just trying to get her nephew and son home when she took a turn down a one-way street, unknowingly driving straight into a throng of police in riot gear. As Rakia tried to turn the car around and leave the dangerous scene, the officers descended on her SUV, broke all its windows, and assaulted and arrested her. This is Rakia Young, in her own words, describing the attack to the Philadelphia Inquirer in a recently published video interview.
Once I got close enough to see the cops, I stopped. Like, I stopped right there. I was trying to turn around, but it was like people came inside the street. It was up there throwing stuff at the cops. Next thing you know, the cops started charging, started running. My nephew was saying, lock the doors, because they was banging on the car, saying mean things. Turn this effing car around, get out the effing car. And they had yanked my door open, but by the time they had busted the back window, they pulled me out the car, and they busted the other window. I was up there yelling at them, like, my son is in the car, my son is in the car. And once they bust that window, they had woke him up. And they was up there like doing whatever they was doing to me. Hitting me, throwing me, macing me. My son, the look on his face, like he was petrified. Petrified.
Rakia Young was then separated from her 2-year-old child and held for hours. She described pleading with a police officer from the back of a police wagon.
I was asking, like, what's going on? Like, where's my son? Where's my son? Like, screaming, like, trying to find my son. The officer had the nerve to tell me he's in a better place. DHS. You could say anything you want about me, but calling me, like saying something like that to me is an insult. They, as a whole, the Philadelphia Police Department treated me as if I was an animal on the street. An animal don't even deserve that.
After police assaulted Rakia Young, separated her from her child, a photo was taken of a female officer holding her toddler. The National Fraternal Order of Police, the nation's largest police union, posted the photo on social media, falsely claiming, quote, this child was lost during the violent riots in Philadelphia, wandering around barefoot in an area that was experiencing complete lawlessness. We are the only thing standing between order and anarchy, unquote. The false post racked up thousands of shares before it was deleted amidst an outcry. More than a month after the police attack, Rakia Young is still fighting for justice and demanding the officers involved be fired. She's also trying to help her 2-year-old recover from the physical and emotional trauma of the assault. This is Rakia speaking to the Philadelphia Inquirer.
He's petrified, and he's only 2 years old. My mom and my nephew asked him what happened. He was saying, car, door, open door, and up there banging his hand. Like as if, the cops was banging on the car. He just kept repeating it. Like he's still trying to tell the story. Like he acts out, he bite his nails, he pull his hair nail. He never did those things before. He's traumatized. He is going through something. He knows words, but he can't express to me how he's feeling.
Rakia's little 2-year-old is hard of hearing and wears hearing aids. When the police impounded her SUV, they did not have access to the hearing aids for weeks. Well, for more on this disturbing police assault and what's happened since that night, on October 27th, we go to Philadelphia, where we're joined.
Okay. So, that was, again, that is just, it's hard to watch, it's hard to watch to see a young Black mom, she's just driving home. Just try to put yourself in her shoes. If you have any kind of soul, if you consider yourself human, because I know, when I post this after, anytime you talk about police brutality in a video, somehow right-wing trolls find their way to the video and they'll just, without a doubt, leave their terrible comments. They find their way to these videos, and it's, just put yourself in her shoes. Do you care about just a mom driving home? You don't even know what the hell the protests are about. You're just a mom driving home, and you turn down a street, a one-way street, because you're just trying to find your way. There's this protest going on, streets are blocked off. The scene can be a bit chaotic for somebody that just gets caught in the midst of it, unknowingly. And so she's just driving home, and ironically, I don't know if I want to use that word, the protest is about police brutality and protesting against police brutality. Police had shot and killed Walter Wallace Jr. in Philadelphia, and they were, people were protesting this shooting. And so she just turns down the wrong street, accidentally turns in. There's some cops there, and they just swarm her vehicle. You saw it there. They swarm her vehicle, surround her vehicle, and then just immediately begin smashing out the windows with children in the car. Like, there's no concern whatsoever for human life, because those lives just happen to be Black lives, of course. There's no concern for her. They treat they drag the woman out of her car. I mean, you see them. They rip open her door, smash her windows open, rip open her door, drag her out of the car, and beat her. You're gonna. What does that look like to you? What does that look like to you? I mean, that should be criminal. That should be criminal. Every one of these cops should be charged with a crime. They should be in, they should be locked up and they should be in jail. These people, they should be held to the highest standards, right? We give them the guns and the badges, and we say these people are the people that are supposed to be, the protectors of the law. How is that not lawless? This woman did nothing wrong. She did absolutely nothing wrong, but maybe turn down the wrong street, turn down a one-way street. Do you think that warrants a beating, arrest, to be beaten, arrested, separated from your child, have your car impounded? The child, has issues hearing, and is hearing impaired, and this is a disabled Black child, and they separated the child from their hearing aids. And of course, because we have such terrible healthcare systems, like, this woman's unable to access hearing aids for her child for 2 weeks. So just imagine that experience. You're already afraid. Now you're struggling to hear things properly. You can't process information, correctly. You're only 2 years old, and you're trying to process this traumatic experience of seeing these monsters, these monsters attack the person that's cared for you. You can see how what the trajectory of a child like this is. You're traumatizing Black children. You're assaulting, beating Black women. And these are just law-abiding civilians. She did nothing criminal, nothing whatsoever. She didn't hit the cops with their car or anything like that. She just drove, and they just happened to be there. And there was just, she's turning, and shoot, here's a whole, gang of police. Because I don't know what other descriptive word you would use there, but that was absolutely some. I've seen gangs with better morals than that. That don't drag women out of their cars and beat them in the streets. This woman had nothing to do with these protests, and it was hard to watch. Her name is Rakia Young. We should remember her name. Do not forget her name. Rakia Young. Keep saying it over and over to yourself, and keep checking back to make sure justice is served. We should all be, we should take to the streets for these causes. The question is, are we going to see our liberal, so-called liberal allies? Why aren't they taking to the streets right now? These are the things that I worry about. That and when you don't have the bad guy Trump as the big bad boogeyman up there, are people going to be as outraged by these same incidents? I mean, why is this not creating more of a bigger stir? This happened. I believe this originally happened in October. She's just now, she's bringing, trying to file suits against the city. This is in Philadelphia, and she's just doing what she can to try to bring attention to the cause. And it should be getting, I feel like, in a Donald Trump, if this was this, people were imagining this as Trump's police and not Biden's police. Now, it makes me wonder, would this get a different reaction? Would we have a different reaction from folks right now? Would there be a bigger outrage about something like this? Something so, just horrendous. This is horrific right here. And I just don't see this being covered in mainstream news the way that I feel like it would be if we were still in, quote unquote, Trump's America, because I think by and large people have sort of carried themselves forward into this new era of this Biden era, and I just feel like folks are already out to brunch on this, really. So you got the National Fraternal Order of Police, tweeting out this thing, trying to claim. I don't know, that really pissed me off. That the white woman taking this black woman's kids away, having photos taken where it appears. This is the grossest propaganda, white supremacist propaganda bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Like, are you kidding me? We got white woman carrying away black baby who you have just assaulted. You just assaulted this child. You just assaulted his mother in front of him. You just traumatized this child for life. And you're acting as if you're some fucking hero in this. Fuck you. Fuck you. And this is white supremacy in action, right? This is how white supremacy works. And you got this white woman carrying away this black woman's child. Another cop threatening DHS, saying, you're not going to see your son again. They're in a safer place now with DHS. Now, the only fucking dangerous situation this child has been in has been amongst the cops. The cops are the only people that endangered this child's life. The mother did not a goddamn thing but love her child, take care of her child, clearly doing the right things, and is trying to protect their child. And here you got, white savior here, carrying them out in the National Fraternal Order of Police, tweeting out as if, saying that this, just creating absolute fake fucking news, right? To say this child was found wandering the streets. What the fuck? They just literally made up this story out of whole fucking cloth after, assaulting, beating a woman in the middle of the street and then kidnapping her child, essentially. Now you got them out here running straight up propaganda, just false, fake news bullshit. Claiming that this woman, this white cop was saving this little black baby. Man, fuck off. These cops this is white supremacy in action. This is how it works. It's how they destroy black families in this country. And they have systematically done so. And this is a system problem, and it requires system change, okay? Systemic problems require systemic change. What we need to do is to say it with me, y'all, defund the police. Because this right here, this organization should be abolished. This is a criminal, this is an organized crime syndicate, all right? That's what we're dealing with here. We need to defund, divest from the police, and reinvest that funding into people that can actually help. What the hell was who was protecting and serving? What were they protecting and serving there? Who were they protecting and serving but themselves? But their damn selves. And who are they protecting from? This big, scary, dangerous, black mom, young black mom, like her teenage nephew and her 2-year-old son, her 2-year-old toddler. Who are they protecting and serving? They endangered all of those people's lives. And now, and they've not been held accountable for it. They've not been held accountable for it. Are they going to be held accountable? We all know what the likely outcome of this. Come on, not even a damn slap on the wrist. Paid vacations for all of them, maybe? Is that the outcome of all this? What the hell's going to happen? Where's my liberal allies? Where are all our liberal allies at? Why aren't we seeing, people taking to the streets protesting right now? Man, I think that we got an uphill battle. I think that people are already out to brunch here. The mother said she felt like she was treated like an animal. They dehumanized black lives. This is how it works, y'all. This is how it works. So, harrowing video there. Really tough to watch, but it's necessary to watch. It's necessary to see these things transpire and to try to have real empathy. Put yourself in their shoes and just imagine what it would feel like, to be abused like that, to be a child in that situation. She talked about that child is traumatized, and think about what that trauma leads to, right? This is the kind of trauma that happens. This is just what gets caught on video, right? Think about all the stuff that doesn't get caught on video. There's so much more than this that never gets caught on video. So you got to multiply this by 100. When you see one of these events, multiply it by 100, 1,000 in your mind, because this stuff is happening every single day all around this country, and nothing is being done about it. Nothing's being done about it. And nothing that Joe Biden is proposing is going to be done about it. What Joe Biden just turned his back on qualified immunity. He's backing off of ending qualified immunity for cops. That's what lets cops essentially skate free on every single one of these cases, because they could just say, oh, we felt afraid. We felt endangered. And so we feared for our lives. And so we had to do what was necessary. And it literally makes them immune to prosecution. And we have books on the rule, rules on the books like that. So we got to do stuff. We got to, fight for systemic change. And honestly, it's not going to happen. Nothing real is going to happen under a Biden administration. Black Lives Matter started under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. It's going to continue under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Like, let's be real here. You got the guy who engineered the 1994 crime bill. He's a literal engineer of an author of the 1994 crime bill is his chief of staff, Ron Klain. So as his chief of staff, he's hired, an engineer of the 1994 crime bill. He himself is, co-authored that legislation and was a champion of the 1994 crime bill. He signed on to the 1884 and 1886 crime bills that created mandatory minimums and the 100-to-1 rule, in the 100-to-1 disparity in sentencing for powder versus crack cocaine. Like, Joe Biden is the father, is one of the fathers of mass incarceration in this country. And Kamala Harris is somebody who, he created the laws, and then Kamala Harris went and prosecuted them, right? She locked people up for cannabis and then laughed about smoking it herself later. She locked up, black moms like Rakia Young. She was locking these moms up for having truant children. Well, guess what? You know what leads to truant children? Trauma like this. Trauma like this early on in your life is going to lead to, she said her child is suddenly developing behavioral issues that he didn't have before. You know what those behavioral issues, where that happens, that manifests itself in school later on, that will later manifest in school. We know we have the school to prison pipeline for Black, youth in this country. So you're more likely as a Black kid to be, punished in school, to have harsher punishments in school, detentions, suspensions, expulsions. So you're more likely to face that. That leads to to pushing kids out onto the streets where they're surrounded by, people in their communities who are forced into situations of having to, deal drugs illegally in a way that, it's illegal for Black people. It's not illegal in the same way. Weed wasn't illegal for white people in this country the way that it was illegal for Black people in this country. We all know how white people and Black people do, possess and use drugs at a similar rate to Black and white people in this country, but Black people are, Black people are at least 4 times as likely to be arrested for that drug possession, and subsequently incarcerated for that. So, this is what leads to behavioral problems later on in life, like truancy, which is skipping class, skipping school, So things like this lead to that traumas that Black youth are experiencing all across the country, just in their everyday lives. And of course, it's not just Black folks, it's Indigenous people, Latino communities. Look what the hell's going on with ICE and these detentions, that, these concentration camps that we got. So it's not just Black folks. It's poor folks, whatever you are, no matter what you are. If you're poor, you're at a disadvantage, right? The system is completely rigged against you. And so you're traumatized by these things early on in life, leads to things like truancy. And then Kamala Harris comes up and locks your parents up for you being truant because they traumatized you early on in life. Cops traumatized you. And so now they send you back to the cops that caused the damn problem in the first place. You see why we talk about defunding the police? It's because this is an unjust organization. It's an unjust institution. And we need to replace that institution. We can do that. We can divest from our police forces. Look at some of these police budgets around the country. You know, the New York police budget is New York City police budget is $6 billion. That is larger than the police budget of many countries, all right, all around the world. So you got a city police budget larger than the military budget of whole ass countries. Okay, so what do they need to do in New York City comparable to a whole country trying to, you know, potentially defend and protect themselves from outside forces? Like, come on, they should not need that a larger budget than these people. But that's where our money goes, you know. And when we say defund the police, we mean remove money from the police and move that money into programs, social programs, you know, mental health programs, education programs, housing for, house the homeless, guarantee housing to all, make housing a human right. Like, provide jobs for everybody. You can create these social programs, give more, create drug addiction services, programs and services and facilities, right? Safe injection sites, things like this, decriminalize drugs. Like, we don't need cops to come, look at, we decriminalized cannabis, right? We legalized cannabis. I've been, I know people, I've been arrested, for over cannabis. I know people that have been arrested over cannabis. Like we were arresting black people in this country, primarily black people, brown people in this country, locking them up over this drug that is now legal, that I got, white ladies coming and delivering weed to me, and dropping this shit off and like at your front door and stuff. And they're totally like, they don't have to face the same dangers that we faced when we were doing that same thing just 5-10 years ago, because now some people magically say that law changed. We know nothing's changed about the plant. We knew the plant was safe enough to smoke and to use, and it was medicinal. It should be descheduled, but we lock people up for these things, and we perpetuate these things that create this cycle, just this never-ending cycle where we are both over-policed and under-policed. They broken windows policing policies, all of these things. Cops just have we have a militarized police force where these cops just have too much money. They've got way too much money. And they use it in black communities to cause untold damage in black communities. And so when we say defund the police, we mean defund the damn police, and fuck everybody that disagrees with that, statement, because it's too harsh. Fuck Obama and his, this is the problem, that you lose people when you say things like defund the police. What the fuck else do you want me to say when what we want to do, Black Lives Matter is a slogan. Defund the police is a policy request. It's a policy demand, right? So that's the difference. That's an important difference. Like, Black Lives Matter slogan, you can sit there and try to debate over how, if you'd like the slogan phrased another way because you think it would be more effective, whatever the hell. Defund the police. There's no quibbling over the language. That is a policy demand. We mean what the fuck we're saying. We want to defund the police. We want to remove funding from the police and move that funding into our other areas where it will actually benefit the communities that it is intended to serve, right? So when we say defund the police, we mean defund the police, because the police, I tweeted something out about this recently where police have actually, there was more money taken by the police through civil forfeiture than in this country last year than all the money in all of the burglaries in the country combined. So let me say that again for y'all. There was more money taken by the police through civil forfeiture. All right. That's when the police just come and take your shit. Okay. And say, we think that you were in the commission. We believe you may have been in the act of committing a crime. We believe you might be. So we're going to take whatever money you have on you. We're going to take your assets, take your house, take your vehicle. We can take whatever. All right. Civil asset forfeiture. All right. So the police took more money last year through civil asset forfeiture than all of the money taken of all of the burglaries in the country combined. All right. So who the fuck are the actual thieves? All right. Who is actually stealing here? We need to defund the police before they defund us. All right. So it's one or the other. All right. Because they're defunding us through civil asset forfeiture. All right. And to all the right wingers, across the country, that should be something that you could get behind too. Right. You don't like when ATF comes in your backyard fucking with you. We don't like these fuck boy ass cops coming into our communities fucking with us. Right. And we should, like, there were right wingers like Amon Bundy that joined in, in support of Black Lives Matter movement. And I think that we need to, find common ground on issues like that, where it's like, yo, we should be agreeing. If you're on the right, you should agree with me on defund the police. That is, if you're a libertarian, you should agree with me on defund the police. That is smaller government. You advocate for smaller government. Well, here I am proposing a far smaller government. I'm saying, let's take away money from these people. All right. So, and I'm fine with just taking away the damn money from the police. All right. I'm fine if that's all you want to do. All right. We can start there. Then I think we need to just get that money into other social programs. All right. That's where the libertarians, that's where I might lose those libertarians, but I don't give a damn, because I know that that's what's necessary to do to make whole, and as we always advocate for on the show, reparations for Black people, reparations for Black families, Black communities. We need reparations, interest-free, unlimited term loans for housing to every Black person in this country, period. Like, we need programs of reparations, direct reparations to Black people, all right, for the debt that is owed to them, for the fact that Black people built this country for free, all right? We built this country during slavery for free, and we want what is owed. That's it. Just want what is owed, all right? We want what we worked for, all right? And even right-wingers should be able to get behind that idea. All right. So, support, Rakia Young and show some solidarity with her. Just tweet this out, share this video so that we can get more people seeing this. I'll clip this up, and when you see the clip come across, please share that video out, share this clip out, so that we can get more attention brought to this, because our liberal allies, it appears they may already be out to brunch, and like we won't really be getting their support through these times. So we're gonna have to fight this fight on the left, alone, essentially. All right. Next. Okay, do we got some comments we want to get to? Cool. Samurai Jack in the building. Awesome. Samurai Jack was joining our live stream earlier during our breaking news. Great to see you back, Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack says, defund the police literally sounds like taking 100% of the money away from police. Almost no one supports that. Accept it. A better term is demilitarize the police. No, I will not accept it, unfortunately, Samurai Jack. Defund the police sounds like what it sounds like. All right. We defund things like we defund libraries. We defund social programs all the time. We got people that want to defund, Social Security. All right. That does not mean, there's another statement that means get rid of police. It's called abolish the police. Defund the police is the compromise statement. All right. And the bottom line is that defund the police is more popular in polls better right now than Nancy Pelosi. So these centrists that say it's not popular, well, it's more popular than them. And in fact, it's at an all-time high for support. Like, it's still not above water, but that's the thing. If you believe in something and you actually stand on principle and you believe something, then you fight for that thing, whether or not it's popular or not at the time. You fight for it because it's the right thing to fight for. And so what we mean is defund the police. We want to take away money, take away funding from the police. Period. That's what it means. To get into longer, statements, what defund the police does is it creates this conversation, and it creates space for this conversation to happen, right? And I'll try not to get, jump down people's throats. I'm just a little worked up from this last story, but the thing is, plenty of people do support. There are a lot of people support taking 100% of the money away from police. All right. There are plenty of people that support that. All right. There are a ton of people that support that. That is there are a great number of leftists that do support completely, taking all money away from the police, completely abolishing the police, for one. So that's one thing. Of course, that's not popular in the country, abolishing the police. And honestly, you don't see me use the terminology because I'm, again, compromising on it and saying I think that divest from the police and reinvest in other social services is just too, it does not roll up. It's just too wordy, and it does not pack a punch that it needs to get people's attention. All right. And so what we mean is defund them. Defund doesn't mean totally defund. That means if we meant totally defund, we would say completely defund the police, right? We don't mean totally defund it. We just mean defund some of it, what they have, right? Just take away some of that money, right? And move it into other social programs. And honestly, that, having defund the police as a flashpoint for this conversation has appeared to me to get more attention brought to the issue than almost anything else that I've seen. I haven't seen people seriously engage with this debate in my entire life until this defund the police movement really picked up, and started gaining in popularity. So, to say defund police, okay, Samurai Jack goes on, defund police sounds extremely vague. Just say reduce police funding by 50%. The thing is, reduce police funding by 50% doesn't cut it everywhere. Some of these, a $6 billion police budget in New York, that needs to be cut by 80 to 90%, not 50%. 50% isn't enough. Look at some of the statistics, and I'll honestly try to bring in more of the statistics into this conversation next time. I wasn't gearing up for the full defund the police conversation right now. We can do a deeper dive into it, but look at the statistics on some of these budgets in these cities. The police budget is bigger than the education budget, the healthcare budget, the housing budget, all combined. It's bigger than all of those budgets combined. That is unacceptable. We need more than 50% defunding in a lot of places. So I just don't think it's sufficient. Defund the police, it's a conversation starter, right? And we can't, if we believe in something, if we hold it, if we are principled and we actually believe in something, right? We can't let the right wing or other people dictate what our messaging is. We want to defund the police. And you know what? Let us be the scary people. Like, we're probably aligned. Like Samurai Jack, it sounds like, we by and large, we want the similar things, right? We want to shift funding from the police and into into other social programs, right? I'm almost certain it sounds like you agree with that position, So we agree on the same positions. I don't feel like we're fighting each other or we need to fight each other on it. And I don't think that we need to necessarily sure, we can talk strategy and we can debate different strategies out, right? But to just sit there and have the conversation out about, oh, that's just too harsh of a word. Let's not focus on that. Let's not focus on that because that's just really tone policing at that point, right? We're just kind of tone policing each other and saying, oh, that's too harsh. That's sort of civility politics. It sort of harkens back to civility politics of pull up your pants and just say it a little nicer and maybe they'll change their minds. Listen, radical change doesn't happen on the backs of moderate, slogans and these moderate movements. We need, strong movements and strong messaging for our movement so that maybe if we have to compromise, sure, we're scare them into thinking that we want to 100% defund the police. And maybe our compromise position is that we'll defund the police 50%. But if we come to the negotiating table with defund the police 50%, I guarantee you they're going to beat us down to 25% and then maybe 10% or even 5%. Look at what has happened across the country. So far, only one, we had all those protests and it wasn't, defund the police wasn't the whole point of the protest. It wasn't the loudest slogan being, championed. It was Black Lives Matter. That's what the movement was built around in the wake of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. Really is what really sparked the nationwide and then international movement. And I think that to say demilitarize the police, it just doesn't cut enough. Sure, I also agree with demilitarizing the police. That's a slogan on its own. Why isn't it catching hold? Why isn't it creating the same kind of, drawing the same attention to the movement? And I would say because it's not a strong enough phrase. And so we tried demilitarize the police. We tried divest in the police. We tried all those slogans and people didn't pay attention. And when we said defund the police, people started paying attention. It sits right there on my board every show, it sits there. We can't back down from this. We just can't back down. Mark McKeever says Congress is passing another $800 million plus budget for the military. He means $800 billion budget for the military. Yet again, with the policy change to not remove our soldiers from certain countries, defund the police. Good luck. We like power. Yeah, no, listen, I'm not naive in thinking that we are close to winning in this fight, but doesn't mean that we're going to stop fighting, right? We can't stop fighting for this stuff just because it's listen, all throughout history, there are countless examples of people in power, acting like they just don't believe things could change until suddenly they do, right? There's that quote from, I believe it's a philosopher, a well-known philosopher who said, for years, for decades, nothing happens. Then in a few, they say, for decades, nothing happens. Then in a few weeks, decades happen, right? So sometimes we're just going along and it feels like nothing's changing and nothing's happening, right? And then all of a sudden, in just a very short period of time, in a matter of a few weeks, it feels like decades of progress happened, right? So all throughout history, you can point to examples. I mean, whole economic systems have been overthrown, right? So there's countless examples throughout history of what seemingly impossible fights suddenly being possible. I mean, was it possible? Did it seem possible that a bunch of men were going to get together and give women the right to vote? Like that didn't seem possible, right? Did it seem possible that white supremacist institutions were going to give Black people the power to vote? Did that ever seem possible? Did it ever seem possible that a system built on white supremacy was going to, where Black people were once considered not even people, and 3/5 of a person at best, and really that 3/5, they weren't considered the person. It was just how much credit of a vote their master got for them. So it's not like they were 3/5 of a person. They weren't even 3/5 of a person. They were nothing. They were property. All right. And did it seem possible that a bunch of human beings that were held as property would one day have rights in this country, be free? No, none of this stuff ever seems possible. All of those things were instances of people being in power and loving that power and wanting to hold on to that power. The thing is, systems fail, and we're in the midst of a failing system, and we may not recognize it right now. But I believe that we are at the very beginning of the crumbling of the American empire, and something else is going to be built up in its place, where we may be on the brink of what in history, Richard Wolff has recently spoken about this. History may look back 100 years from now, and we won't be around to see it, but history may look back at this moment in the pandemic and what's happened since then, and look back and say that, this was the moment in time where capitalism started to fail. And so in the wake of capitalism, if we can build up democratic institutions and we can build democratic power, then there's nothing that says that we can't win on those fronts. And we need to draw a line in the sand now, so that we know when we get there, these are the policies that we demand. If you want Black people to fight in your fight to every other comrade of mine, you got to stand with us, and don't back down, and don't be afraid. It's Black folks out here screaming, defund the police. Instead of telling us, guys, you got to say it a different way because the white people in power aren't going to like it, and it's not nice enough, and we got to think of a nicer way to say this because we're going to push some of the white liberals away. Like, I don't like you. Instead of doing that, just stand with us in solidarity. Stand with us in solidarity and fight alongside us, and we'll fight with you. That's how you build solidarity, right? It's not going to be through tone policing and paternalism where we say, Martin Luther King has a quote where he says, it's not up to another person to paternalistically determine the timeline for justice for another person. They're always waiting on a nicer season. There's always a nicer season on the horizon when that'll be the right time to fight. Enough is enough. We want to fight right now, because nothing less than that feels humane and moral to us. And so this is a moral fight, and we need our white comrades to join us in that fight and not back down from it or be afraid. It's going to make some people uncomfortable. If white people aren't being made uncomfortable, if the powerful aren't being made uncomfortable, then we're doing something wrong, to be honest. Like the dominant, the people in power have to be made uncomfortable in order to, gain working class power, in order to fight for Black liberation, Indigenous liberation, women's liberation, trans liberation, all of these fights that we're fighting on. Corey Saylor says, Medicare for all is the easiest but not easy thing we can do to drastically level the playing field. Next would be UBI. These would also disproportionately help people of color. Yes, absolutely. I certainly agree with all of that. We need to fight those fights. These are critical programs that will very much, that can begin to create an even playing field, but that will not even the playing field. You can't just you can't just say, all right, everybody has to run the race at the same speed now, but some people got to start the race 100 feet ahead of other people, right? We need to move those people all ahead first, right? We need to catch them up first. And to do that, we need policies that specifically target Black and Indigenous people alongside all of these universal programs, right? So I totally support universal programs, Medicare for all. I have mixed feelings on a universal basic income. I'm in and out on universal basic income, but Medicare for all, some sort of universal basic income as a stopgap measure. Workplace democracy, another program that can be universal. Fight, $20 minimum wage tied to cost of living and inflation. So, all of these policies, yes, we should fight for. What Up America says, that's right about needing to fight now. Imagine if the Spartans had waited. Yeah, nice. Yeah, exactly. We cannot wait. What Up America says, as a proud Seattleite, defunding is helping, but the refunding isn't taking place. Homelessness is an epidemic there. Yeah, so, and that sucks. Seattle is literally the only city that I can name that has defunded their police budget at all. They defunded it by 17%. Okay. So that's the only city that I can name in the entire country that has defunded their military. Freudian slip, defunded their police in any substantive way whatsoever since the start of these protests. But it can't just be defunding. We need to reinvest that funding in the appropriate programs in order to combat the other issues that lead to all of the generation of crime. We also just need to decriminalize certain behavior that should not be criminalized. Oregon, I believe, took a drastic step forward in decriminalizing psychedelics. Decriminalizing all drugs, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Oregon decriminalized all drugs. Kudos to them. Beautiful. That's exactly what we need. And I can't wait to see, the results of that. And I know what they will be because we already saw what happened in Portugal. Samurai Jack says, did you know in this military budget, more Democrats voted for it than Republicans? Wow. It never ceases to amaze me. And the Democrats that vote for it, the so-called progressives, I swear, none of the squad better had voted for it. I'll be so upset if the squad voted for it. And I think the most recent military budget, are we all talking about the military budget from over the summer, the $740 billion military budget? Also, this next upcoming military budget, I saw people talking about a recent vote on a military budget, but I tried to dig into it and I did not see that there was a recent vote on a military budget. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I could be wrong on that. So please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But that's does not surprise me, right? This is a neoliberal ideology supporting the military-industrial complex. They are all, even Elizabeth Warren, my senator in Massachusetts. We have Raytheon right in our backyard, and they kowtow to these military-industrial complex. So defense contractors. They're really offense contractors. And that's really gross that we got more Democrats supporting it than Republicans. It should get zero support. Our absurd military budgets, that's a budget that needs to be cut by at least 50%. Bernie proposed a 10% cut, and that was seen as so radical. It's we need to cut we could literally cut our military budget in half, and we would still be the #1 military spender in the world. And the next closest country would be China, and they have 4 times the population of the US. So, 4 times the amount of people to try to protect with the military. Samurai Jack says, I support reparation, cash checks, but it would be hard because not every Black person in America is descended from slaves. How do you decide which Black people get? That's the thing. It would just, to me, you have to do it across the board. Black people are impacted. Even if you're not a descendant of slaves, I am descendant of slaves. But even if you're not a descendant of, American slaves, I descend from Caribbean slaves, but, same slave, say all the same, we're all on the same boats, and we just took a little different turn along the way. I've had to feel the effects of also not just, slavery, but also the, U.S. imperialism as well, in UK imperialism, in Jamaica as well. But how, so how do you decide which black people get it? You cannot go and there is no way for black people to prove that they are descendant of slaves. In most cases, you cannot demand that people take DNA tests. That's just not, that shouldn't be a left position for us. That is not a left position to demand that people take DNA tests. The only fair way to do something like that is to literally, because the thing is, it's a systemic problem. Racism is systemic. And so even if you haven't systemically face the same issues, you are being indoctrinated into a system that you will ultimately feel the impacts of those, right? Just by being black in this country. So I say you give it to any, you're black, you pass the, if you identify as a black person, can be clearly identified as a black person. No Rachel Dolezal's up in here. No Jessica Cruz up in here, please. But I think for all black people, all black Americans, we should provide it across the board. No need to prove that you're a descendant of slaves or anything like that, because you don't need to necessarily be descendant of slaves. If you came over in the midst of Jim Crow, you've been disproportionately impacted by racist institutions in this country, and you deserve to be, compensated for that. So there's no perfect way to implement a policy like that. It just, we have to do it for anyone that identifies as black in this country, to just provide it across the board universally to all black people. And I think for a lot of those programs, I would extend them not just to black people, but to indigenous people as well. So, all right, let's bang out a few more stories, because I got a bunch to get to here. So we're gonna let's get to a few more stories here, see how much we can get through in the show, and then we will chat some more on the other side, and we'll get to as many comments as we can along the way. All right. So, all right. Like I said, it's going to be a bumpy road. We're going from, bad, some, happy stories celebrating, to some really down stories, really troubling stuff, to some more stuff that I'd like to celebrate here. So celebrating a labor, massive, what I consider already a labor victory. And so let's get to that. Some international solidarity here. Farmers in India are currently leading the largest strike in world history. Over 250 million workers have now joined in this strike. And so I just wanted to take a look at that, talk about the importance, the significance of something like this. This has been going on for now about a week now. And so this is a very promising movement. They are striking against Narendra Modi, right-wing Hindu nationalist prime minister of India. They're striking against him, his neoliberal policies. Yes, you heard me right. He has neoliberal policies, even though he's a right-wing, nationalist, Hindu nationalist. And, so we're going to see, let's take a look at the impact of that. So this is from an article in Common Dreams, and it was published on December 3rd. Indian farmers continue historic protest after 250 million people rise up against Modi's neoliberal policies. See an image of what that looks like. We're going to take a look at some video as well. And this is the Communist Party of India here. Shout out to my commie folks out there, participating in this nationwide strike. All right. See a lot of, this is a lot of women out there on the front lines too. So that's just dope to see as well. All right. Okay. In what is being called the largest protest in human history, over 250 million Indians have taken to the streets nationwide over the past week to protest agriculture, deregulation, and other neoliberal policies of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's right-wing Hindu nationalist government. Despite being attacked by police and security forces with water cannons, chemical agents, batons, and other weapons, the peaceful farmer-led demonstrators on Thursday vowed to continue their protest after talks in the capital, New Delhi, with the central government, which is refusing to bow to the protesters' demands, broke down. The farmers are being barred from entering the capital. However, hundreds of thousands of them have massed at entry points to the city, where many of them are encamped. Goes on. The government did not agree to our points and rejected our demands outright. Chanda Singh, a farmer and protest organizer who on Tuesday met with Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh, told Al Jazeera, the members of sorry, I'm going to start this all over. All right. The government did not agree to our points and rejected our demands outright. Chanda Singh, a farmer and protest organizer who on Tuesday met with Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh, told Al Jazeera, the members of the delegation from the government side were not ready to listen to any of our demands, and they have left us with no choice but to protest on the streets. We will continue our protest unless our demands are met. So let's just take a look at this really awesome video from Sarah. So we're going to take a look at this video.
सरकार की नियत में हमें हमेशा शक रहता और रहेगा, क्योंकि ये कारपोरेट का जो है गुलाम बने बैठे हैं, हम कौन का गुलाम बनना चाहते हैं। सरकार द्वारा किसान 3 बिल लाए गए हैं, उसको वापस करवाने के लिए आए गए हैं। पीछे 2 महीने से किसान आंदोलन चल रहा है हरियाणा और पंजाब में कि इसको वापस लिया जाए, तो सरकार को इस तरफ कोई ध्यान नहीं था।
Given that around half of India's 1.3 billion people work in the agriculture sector, there is a lot of support and a lot of sympathy for these farmers. Meanwhile, we have heard from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and he has defended these farm laws, saying that they are in the interest of farmers, that they will give farmers access to a bigger market, that it's a good thing that farmers can negotiate directly with private companies, but farmers don't see it that way. They think that these laws will see the removal, the end of guaranteed minimum prices for their produce.
ये सभी रद्द होने चाहिए। जब रद्द हो गए तब ये माहौल शांत होगा, अदरवाइज ये लंबा चलेगा, संघर्ष बहुत लंबा जाएगा।
All right, so that was great. That is just tremendous. I love to see labor power like that. It's inspiring. That is so inspiring to me, to just see the power of people in action and collective power. And damn, I wish I look forward to the day that we grow the courage in the American, in just the class consciousness and the courage to go out there and to stand in solidarity, to be in solidarity with other workers through a general strike. Like, sign me up whenever y'all are ready. I'm ready. I'll be right out there with everyone. I want to see sustained protests, a sustained strike, a general strike in this country with demands being met for, you know, we should demand things like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We should be demanding, recurring, monthly, stimulus checks to every single American. You got these Congress people, and we're going to get into this story, a little bit later, but you got these Congress people out there, about to, throw some crumbs to the American people while they give, doing giveaways to corporations. Why are we sitting idly by while that's going on? We should refuse. The American people should reject this fraudulent stimulus deal that they're offering, and we should be out there in the streets protesting, leading a general strike as workers. And so I hope everybody watching the show is geared up and ready for a general strike. Now, let me say, I know not everyone can afford that. I will participate in a general strike. Let me just say this, I will personally participate in a general strike regardless of the condition that I'm under, because I happen to have enough of a network, safety net of friends that I can rely on, for support. So I have that ability. And so I will be joining any sort of general strike anytime it happens. I will be out there. That is the kind of sustained protest, something akin to the Yellow Vest movement in France, or this tremendous action by the Indian farmers. And this is because they're refusing. They don't want to privatize these systems. They don't want to privatize the agriculture system, because right now they're guaranteed these minimum prices for their produce from the government, and they know that this idea of like privatizing these things, they can see the outcome from places all around the world, that you privatize these institutions and they crumble. They extract all the value from them that they can. It incentivizes them to once they have control over that, they jack up prices and all in the name of competition. But why pit one farmer against another when they're all, they're comrades? We're all comrades here. We don't want to pit one against the other. We all want to survive. Why can't we have a system where instead of competition, we have cooperation, where we in order for one to survive, another one doesn't have to lose, right? We can create a system like that. And it's so encouraging to see workers stand in solidarity in a moment like this. I love that the farmer said, they've got their tractors loaded and they got rations for months, right? These are the farmers. There's nothing to show how much more crucial, something like farming is to a society, right? Than to see that, like, these people are the people that have the very means to do this, right? They control the food, and they recognize that we control the food, right? That is a powerful, that is power right there. It is power to control the food, right? Like that collectively, right? As a community, collectively, they control that, right? And they're not willing to put it into private hands like that and see it, get away from them. And they know what's ultimately going to come from those sort of neoliberal policies, because we've seen those neoliberal policies. For one, if you're in the US, you get a front row seat to all that, because that's all that we've seen for the past few decades in this country are neoliberal, or somewhere between a neoliberal to neoconservative policies that have absolutely decimated the working class. So this was really encouraging. Just wanted to show some solidarity with these Indian farmers, really shine a light on the how long is it going to take the mainstream media to cover this? I don't know. I still have yet to see this being covered properly on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Why aren't they covering this? Why isn't the mainstream media covering this? This is the world's largest protest, the world's largest strike. This should be on these 24-hour news networks. They have all the budgets of, they got multi-million-dollar budgets. They have the resources to cover this. Why aren't they covering it? We all know, right? It doesn't benefit the capitalist class, doesn't benefit their narrative, so they're not going to cover it, right? But we'll cover it here. That's why you should support independent left-wing media. If you'd like to support us, please head over to our Coffee or our Patreon and sign up for as low as $1. You can also leave a one-time donation on Coffee as well. You don't got to sign up for anything. You just leave a one-time donation. You can do it anonymously if you want. Again, as low as $1, and every single dollar counts, because we're not corporate media, right? We're just an independent, grassroots funded organization, and we need support from folks like yourself. So if you can afford to do so, only if you can afford to do so, please support the show. We really need your support. Links are in the description box below. Coffee.com/radical democracy. You can also support us if you're already on Patreon. You can support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/radical democracy. Again, those links are in the description box below. So just open up that description box, click them links, and go support the show. Please do it. Do it. All right. And if you can't afford to do that, please, I think you can all afford to take one moment of your time. Just hit that like button right down below there. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. We hit our 1,200th subscriber today, so that is really awesome. We are a small but growing channel, and it is really cool to hit those milestones. So 1,200 subscribers now for the channel, and growing every day. So thank you so much to everyone that subscribed already. And tell your friends, tell your kids, tell your wives. All right. Okay. I'm going to jump to our next story here. We're cruising. I'm going to try to cover as much as we can. We're at the hour 40 mark, and we'll try to keep it to 2 hours, but I want to get through a bunch of stories. And we'll just release these clips throughout the rest of the week and the weekend. So try to get through as many stories as we can. And if we can't finish, all of our stories, we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll do it again tomorrow, and we'll hang out and we'll chat and have this great dialogue. We really enjoy having the dialogue. Love connecting with our community in every way we can. So thank you so much to everyone. Shout out to Samurai Jack for jumping in, chatting. Love to see it. I know I can be abrasive sometimes. Appreciate everyone for bearing with me. Always appreciate chatting with y'all. All right, so let's get to our next story here. All right. After rejecting a stimulus deal back in October, Nancy Pelosi has now come out and backed a so-called bipartisan stimulus deal that is not only half the size of the stimulus that was offered by Trump and the White House back in October. Not only is it half the size, but it also includes something known as a corporate liability shield that would literally protect companies, make companies immune from prosecution when, not if, but when their workers die from unsafe working conditions due to, COVID-19 and the pandemic. So this is disgusting, right? And this would be a non-starter in any real democracy. Like this would have 0% chance of passing, and what was offered back in October would have been accepted. And you can go check our coverage back in October. We advocated for Nancy Pelosi to take that deal back in October. Folks like Ro Khanna advocated, and Andrew Yang advocated for Nancy Pelosi to take that deal back in October, because we all knew that was likely the best deal that the Democrats would ever be able to get. But the reality is that the Democrats chose to play politics and were fine. They were just fine leaving working class Americans out to suffer for months and to struggle with no protections, housing moratoriums coming up and, on an end, rents coming due. All that the American people had been given was a $1,200 check back in, April and May. They were given a $1,200 check, and they've gotten nothing. But laughed at since then. So Nancy Pelosi now, let's take a look at this. First, we'll just take a look at the headline in Newsweek. So you can see it here. On a Newsweek, Pelosi now backs stimulus deal, half the size of what White House offered before election. Okay. So why would she do something like that, you ask? Why would she back a deal half the size of what the White House offered before the election now. Why would she do that? When she was, well, I'll tell you why. She submitted to it, honestly, and we'll hear from her. But it was a political move. It was a political move in order to not, because she was more concerned about giving Donald Trump some sort of, perceived win back in October before the election. She was more concerned about that than securing actual material benefits for working Americans and for just non-working Americans, Americans forced out of the workforce, unemployed, elderly, children, sick Americans, right? She was willing to turn her backs on all the people in need, the people that were struggling the most. She was willing to turn her backs on all of those people. They were offered a $1.8 trillion deal back in October that would have included over at least $400 a week unemployment benefits added to people's existing weekly benefits, another round of stimulus checks. It would have included that. And this bill seemingly doesn't include any stimulus checks, might potentially get $600 stimulus checks, maybe one-time stimulus checks. Meanwhile, we gave away like $4.5 trillion, just a blank check to the wealthiest corporations in the CARES Act, and just signed over a blank check to corporations essentially. But to the American people, you got a pittance, $1,200 and a middle finger essentially. So, let's take a look at just a listen to this clip this was from CNN, and it's going to be a reporter on CNN talking, and we'll hear a clip of him questioning Nancy Pelosi about this deal and about accepting a worser deal now. And you'll see how she responds to this, the hostility that she has towards the American people, essentially, I believe. So I'm going to take a look here at this clip, and then we'll talk about what should be considered a poison pill in this legislation, what should be a total non-starter, the corporate liability shield. We'll talk about that after we check out this clip. All right. So this clip is just, again, to set this up, this is just Nancy Pelosi. She's going to, scold a CNN reporter after they ask a fair question about her accepting a worser stimulus deal here.
Manu, Capitol Hill negotiations are heating up. You have lawmakers on both sides pushing for an agreement that has stalled for months. Today, the House Speaker is defending her handling of the stimulus, and I know that you asked her about that. So what more can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. There are high-level negotiations that are happening. There's momentum on both sides. They are talking about a package around $900 billion. There are a lot of details they still need to sort out. It's possible that negotiations could extend not just next week, but to the week after. But there is new optimism. Now, the question has been about how they got to this point. Nancy Pelosi, of course, had been pushing a larger package for some time, and she had also rejected the idea of doing half of a loaf and coming back and getting the rest of the half at a later point. She had made that position pretty clear for some time. So I asked her earlier today if that was a mistake.
Not to accept half of a loaf months ago when you said, I'm not going to accept half a loaf.
Look, I'm going to tell you something.
Now,
don't characterize what we did before as a mistake, as a preface to your question, if you want an answer. That was not a mistake. It was a decision, and it has taken us to a place where we can do the right thing without other, shall we say, considerations in the legislation that we don't want. So we're very pleased at where it is. And as I say, with a Democratic president committed to a scientific solution for this, with the idea that we will have a vaccine, it's a complete game changer from them.
So she's saying the big difference now is that Joe Biden is coming in as president, and then since he's president, they could get more of what they had been seeking at a later time, which is why she says that the posture and the dynamics have changed on Capitol Hill. So she's making she's not showing any remorse or regret for her position for some time, saying that we'll eventually get the big package that we have been looking for. And what they're trying to do right now, Brianna, is tie this relief to a funding bill to keep the government open. And time is ticking because they got to avoid a government shutdown by next Friday, try to get it to that. But if they can't get a deal by next Friday, they may have to punt it for another week and see if they can ultimately get a deal that's been eluding the two sides for months.
So, okay, actually, well, I'll let it keep going. They're going to talk about how the deal differs. I'll just let them quickly. I'll let Manu Raju cover that here. Let me finish. Give you the rest of this clip here.
Months ago, compared to this deal that's on the table now?
Well, she had been pushing for $2.2 trillion, which was down from more than $3 trillion in aid that the House passed back in May. The Senate Republicans, of course, did not want to take up that $3 trillion package, which is why she went down to $2.2 trillion. And then the White House came back up and said they would be willing to go up to about $1.8 trillion. Now, the White House package at the time, Brianna, it was not very detailed. There were a lot of questions about exactly what it would entail. Pelosi did not like the direction that they were going, and Senate Republicans were resisting going up to the level that the White House wanted. But Pelosi was not willing to go with the White House's proposal at that time, which is what led to the breakdown before the elections. But right now, what's clear is that this proposal, if they accepted roughly $900 billion, is much less in scope and size than what the Speaker had been pushing for some time. But it's something that both sides believe they can agree to, as so many people are waiting for action here, Brianna.
All right. So just wanted to let him talk about the last of it. So you hear him, he just broke it down a little bit there. That what started, Pelosi originally wanted $2.2 trillion stimulus. The Republicans, the White House refused that. They eventually came back with a $1.8 trillion offer, to which Nancy Pelosi rejected. She turned it back on it. She rejected that $1.8 trillion offer. Would have provided stimulus back in October, helping to keep people whole for these past, all of October, November, and now into December. I mean, we're talking about potentially 3 months of supporting the public and helping people out, just gone and can never be made up for, really, unless we did, even with retroactive stimulus. You have people that have been evicted from their homes already. There have been mass evictions. Like, it just doesn't get reported in the mainstream media. So they came back with, they came back with a $1.8 trillion offer from the White House. Nancy Pelosi rejects it, says that she won't accept half a loaf. And now, 3 months later, she's now accepting half a damn loaf, literally a stimulus deal that is literally half the size, 1.8 trillion down to 900 billion, literally half the size for the deal. I mean, you couldn't be more on the nose. She literally accepted half a loaf 3 months later. So, it's later and it's less. That is not compromise. That's failure. That's not negotiating. That's failing. Like, they have failed here. And she's she called herself a master legislator once. What is masterful about this? What's masterful about this? Please, somebody tell me what's masterful about this. To go into a negotiation, to get an offer for $100, to reject that offer, then to come back months later and have to accept $50. Does that sound like winning? No, not just $50, but $50, and we get to kick you in your ass. And if you happen to be injured, we're not covering the healthcare. We're not responsible. Because literally, let's take a look at one last thing that has made its way into this stimulus deal that is really should be it makes it downright unacceptable to me at this point. This should be unacceptable. But we'll take a look at this article. This was published in The Guardian, but this was published originally by David Sirota in Julia Rock in the Daily Poster. It's David Sirota's Substack. So his own independent platform. And so here's an article that they published in The Guardian that about this, this provision that has been snuck into this legislation and what the impact of it is. All right. So tucked into the COVID-19 stimulus package, protection for corporations. The proposed legislation would shield corporations from liabilities if their workers die from COVID-19 in unsafe workplaces. Okay. So, you've got, they've in addition to taking half of what was offered back in October, they're also willing to accept that, when, not if, but when employees die from COVID-19 due to the unsafe working conditions that these companies are creating for their employees, those people won't be able to sue those companies. Those families won't be able to get any sort of restitution from those companies. Those companies won't be held responsible if they literally caused the death of another human being, directly caused the death of another human being. In some ways, some people go to life in jail for causing the death of other people. Some people go to life in jail for just selling somebody some drugs that got them high. That's it. Some people spending life in jail over weed right now, right? So some people, they go to life in jail for far less than killing people, right? But these corporations that are supposedly people, right? Corporations are people, folks. Remember that. Never forget, corporations are people, according to our laws here in this country. So if they're people and they kill someone, shouldn't they, face criminal prosecution for that? Isn't that how it works for people? What kind of people get to be immune from prosecution when they kill other people, right? So, this should be totally unacceptable. This deal is a failure on the part of the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. This is a complete and utter failure, and the American people should not sit idly by. Take a cue from those workers, those farmers in India. Take a cue from them, and let's stand in solidarity and say enough is enough, because maybe you have a job right now, but your jobs are precarious. They can go at any time, folks. Like, you have a job today, you won't have one tomorrow. You got to stand in solidarity while you have the power of even having a job. If you can afford to do it, we got to build mutual aid networks, but we ain't got time to build mutual aid networks, up enough. We just got to, it's going to require some sacrifice from some set of people. It is going to require sacrifice, and we should appreciate those people, lift up those people and be in solidarity with them when they put their own job on the risk to go on strike. But we need a general strike in this country. It's what, I call for a general strike on a damn near daily basis. I am ready for it. I mean, you're talking to somebody that's been unemployed for a year. And so I know what it's like to not have a job. I really do. And I know what it's like to be on the edge of everything, really. And I know what a big ask it is, to say to somebody, go on strike. But I'm asking you I will be right there with you. I promise you, no matter whether I'm in a software engineering job at some big, cushy tech firm or what. Or I'm right here bringing you the news on my small indie media outlet. We will support the general strike in every way, shape, and form. I mean, if we're literally doing the independent media, I can't go on strike myself, literally, like, to do that. Like, I will literally cover the strike, and that will be my contribution to the strikes, is covering the strike, and trying to support mutual aid networks. Will help, we'll donate to mutual aid networks, whatever's necessary. But we got to do what's necessary to come together and to outright reject this, because this is not an acceptable deal, and it does not go nearly far enough. So people should be outraged by this horrendous deal, and the fact that they're putting corporate liability protections in here. Based on that, if you're going to put that in there, you should be able to get whatever you want for Democrats. Like, if you're willing to put that in there, that should come at the cost of literally whatever we want. They want corporate protections. Okay, you get corporate protections. We want universal health care, and we want no more employer-based health care. We want universal health care, and we want $2,000 a month stimulus checks to every single American, going back retroactively back to whenever that stimulus payment initially went out, right? So going all the way back to March. We want $2,000 a month stimulus payments to every single American. Man, woman, and child. All right. We want, I don't care. We want $2,000 a month stimulus payments to every single American, elderly, young, anywhere in between. $2,000 a month. If you're going to trade off people's potentially lives, you're literally talking about exchanging human life right there. Right. Like if they can't get the protection from the company, okay, cool. That's fine. The companies are saying, wash our hands of it. We can't handle it. We can't accept responsibility. Okay. You can't accept responsibility for that. Well, guess what? We're not going to let you have the power anymore of employing people at the threat of them losing their health care if they lose their job. We're not going to allow that anymore. You just fired millions of workers. We're not going to allow that anymore. We're going to we're going to take over the health insurance industry, and we are going to provide universal health care in this country. We're going to provide a basic income to people to make sure that they're able to pay those hospital bills, to do whatever is necessary, that they're not forced into the working conditions. They don't have to make a choice between their life and going to work for some corporation. So sure, you want liability protection, so you don't got to pay any of your existing money out to those workers. Sure, you can get that in exchange for recognizing that you're going to have to give up. We're going to tax the rich more. We're going to tax corporations, and we're going to use those taxes on corporations and the wealthy in order to pay for a basic income for the rest of these people. Period. And we should be able to get that. And if they can't do that, then we don't accept anything less than that. We don't accept anything less than that, or we don't accept them putting in corporate liability protections. Period. We're doing the stimulus to save the damn economy. A stimulus saves capitalism. So this is going to help corporations ultimately to just keep people whole so they don't go destitute, so that they can buy all the products that the capitalists produce. All right. So we're helping capitalism by providing stimulus to the people. We're already doing a favor to capitalism. That's enough. Capitalism doesn't need any more of a favor than that. So if we're going to give up, put literal lives on the line, then we better be getting a whole lot more in exchange than some little pittance of like $600 a month, maybe, and a little bit more in unemployment checks, which unemployment runs out. I was on unemployment for a year. My unemployment ran out. I don't get that. There's people that are beyond that benefit. It's not enough. It's just not enough. People need more than that. Corey Saylor says, Nancy goddamn Pelosi is the perfect example of the rot within the Democratic Party. Pelosi and McConnell are two sides of the same coin. I totally agree with you. It's just so indicative of this, the fecklessness of the Democratic Party. And it's not feckless because it's intentional. This is intentional. This isn't because they're weak. It's because they're stronger than the left, and we got to acknowledge that. It's not a weakness of theirs. They are doing this intentionally. They know exactly what they're doing. And the fact that they're only able to do it because they are still, for now, stronger than the left. What we have to do is fight back and build up a united left that builds strength on the left and beat their asses in primaries. Like, beat them in primaries. Get folks like Nina Turner elected to Congress, get folks like them in there. And we have to win primaries with our progressive candidates. Nina Turner hopefully will run in 2024. After winning a seat in Congress, hopefully in 2021, taking Marcia Fudge. I don't even know if I say her name right. Marcia Fudge or Marcia Fudge. I read it as Marcia Fudge. I'm probably wrong, but it's probably Marcia Fudge. But Marcia Fudge. And, hopefully Nina Turner takes our seat, and then we can, propel her into a presidential run in 2024. What If America says, oh, my God. And did you see when she blew up on Wolf Blitzer that she wanted to secure, quote, more benefits, as if she's some kind of progressive? Like, she's such bullshit. And she blew up on Wolf Blitzer when he had the audacity to point out that Ro Khanna and Andrew Yang, and Ro Khanna, another member of Congress, he said, had called on her to support the stimulus deal. And this is what's so freaking important about, progressives like Ro Khanna pushing back against the Democratic establishment. Even if it's just one of you, that's the power of just one, one progressive member of Congress with enough courage standing up to the Democratic establishment, that's the power of that. It gives the reporters the, license to go and ask to hold truth to power and to ask, critical questions of the Democratic establishment, like putting it to Nancy Pelosi and putting her on the spot and saying, like, why aren't you backing this stimulus deal? Back in October, she had the option of backing it and she refused. And people were pushing her, including us on the show, including Ro Khanna in Congress, including Andrew Yang, pushing her to just accept the damn stimulus deal because we knew it was the best she was going to get offered. And they didn't accept it for political reasons. And here we are. And we said it all at the time, and we knew it was for political reasons at the time, and we called it. And it's played out exactly how we knew it would play out. So no surprises here. If you watch this show, if you're a longtime viewer of the show, nothing about this surprises you whatsoever. Thanks for the comment. What up? Appreciate that, and appreciate the support. What Up America says, do you think political advertisement budget is the reason we keep getting such evil fix in Congress? So political advertisement budget, honestly, is just money in politics in general. Like having private money in politics, period, is, a major part of the problem, right? Like we should get rid of all private money in politics. We should give every single American a $300 a year stipend, out of, it's just call it like election bucks or something, and every American gets $300 of it that they can share out to any candidates of their choice, however they so please. You can give all $300 to one candidate. You can give $1 each to 300 different candidates, whatever. But every single American gets to contribute the same amount. No $1 million super PACs, people, one single person being able to pump tens of millions of dollars into a single campaign. Amazon being able to pump millions of dollars into small local elections in Seattle and places like that. None of that. The only way that money's allowed to get into elections and into campaigning is, through that public funding. And by doing that, I think that it would largely even the playing field. I don't know what we'll be able to do to limit the spending, but I mean, I would totally be in support of like something that says like no campaign is allowed to, like, you can have different levels for different levels of office, but like in a presidential race, like I think like Canadians do, like they spend like $1 million a piece. Like they spend like in the Canadian election one, it's like 6 weeks or something like that. Like UK elections, Canadian elections, like 6 weeks long. And people, they spend like $1 million on these like prime minister, like nationwide elections. They spend like $1 million. One single candidate in the election will spend we spend like $1 billion with a B billion dollars in our presidential elections. Like single candidates are spending hundreds of millions of dollars in these presidential elections. It's absurd. So we should limit political advertising for sure. We should make it more, fair, like giving not, I don't even think political advertisement should necessarily be a thing. Candidates should have to come on. Every candidate that's running an election, if you qualify for an election, you should be given equal time on all media outlets. If you have one candidate on, the rule is you have one candidate on, however long you give that candidate in time, you have to give every single other candidate the same amount of time. And during the same sort of prime time spots or whatever, and make things egalitarian in that sense. So I think that would be, I'm totally in favor of something that would limit political advertising, and also just take the private money out of elections. It's totally corrupt, and makes things unfair and unequal. All right. So we are up against our 2-hour mark. And I think that have we covered all the title stories at this point? Yeah. So we covered everything, all of our title stories. So you know what? We're going to wrap things up. We're going to start to wrap things up here. I'll take any last comments that we have or anything like that, but I won't get into any of our other stories. I had a few other stories that I wanted to get into. There's a couple of, trans rights issues that have popped up in the news that we want to cover. I want to talk about Black Panther star coming out with some, you know, transphobic conspiracy theory tweet, you know, promoting this transphobic, trans antagonistic, really, conspiracy theory video. Want to talk about that. Want to talk about the UK passing legislation that will prevent trans youth from accessing puberty blocking hormones and what the impacts of that are, you know, are to be, from, you know, hearing from members of the trans community on it. So those are a couple of stories that we definitely want to cover and intend to cover on our next show. We'll do those at the top of the next show, so that we make sure that we get to them. You know, sorry that we didn't have enough time to cover those today. I was really trying to cruise through, but just want to make sure that we're giving everything the time that it deserves as well. So we will try not to rush through. We got plenty of time. We'll be back on for another show. We do have, you know, to anyone that hasn't done so already, please hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and share this video out. I recorded an awesome interview earlier today with Professor Christian Chun, PhD, and we talked about the idea of yellow peril and the model minority myth. And it was just a great conversation, you know, the intersection of those issues, as well as how they intersect with, you know, both the with capitalism as well. And it's a really great conversation, really great interview. Looking forward to bringing that to you. We'll talk about it, and I'll mention it in the Discord server. Probably going to throw out a poll or something to talk about how we might release that video. We'll either do it as we might do it as an early access video for our Coffee and Patreon members. So please, if you haven't done so already, support us on Coffee and Patreon. So we want to make sure that we're thanking that community in every way that we can for their support. And so we may do an early access version for our Coffee and Patreon community, and then do a separate live premiere for the rest of the community. So, or if our Patreon and Coffee community would prefer that we just do it all at once and we all get together and chat all at once, you know, then we'll do it that way. We'll pose it to the community, and we'll try to vote on it democratically as we can. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build democracy in the workplace here. And so trying to, you know, institute democracy in every way that we can. So please support us in doing so on Coffee at ko-fi.com/radical democracy. Links in the description box below. And if you're on Patreon, you can also support us over there on patreon.com/radical democracy. Again, links in the description box below. So thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Do we have any other comments that we want to get to before we wrap things? No? All right. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight. We will be back again, hopefully tomorrow. We will aim for tomorrow, but we got a lot to get to. We got to get that interview edited and get that out there for you as well. So we'll be back soon, hopefully tomorrow with another live episode. But if not, we will be back again very soon, I promise you. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Peace.